The year is 1238. Maria Valkanskaya clutches her infant daughter as smoke rises from her village near Moscow. The thunder of hooves grows louder, echoing like an omen across the snow-covered fields. Within minutes, the world she has known all her life will be wiped away. Yet what comes next is not the version you see in movies or read in simplified history books. The truth of what the Mongols did to captured women was far more strategic, more devastating, and more psychologically complex than any Hollywood production has ever shown. Most people believe they understand the Mongol conquests, ruthless horsemen sweeping across the land, burning cities and massacring populations. However, that narrative hides the most chilling truth. Behind the violence was a systematic, carefully organized method for dealing with captured women. Their treatment wasn't random or impulsive, it was part of a calculated strategy that extended far beyond simple brutality. Before revealing the evidence uncovered by historians, it's important to understand something. These accounts aren't from sensational documentaries or fictional retellings. They come from primary sources, archaeological discoveries, and survivor testimonies that remain buried for centuries. They reveal a version of the Mongol Empire that was not just the largest contiguous land empire in history, but also a highly efficient machine designed to extract maximum value from every conquest. Tragically, women were viewed as one of the most valuable resources. The process began long before a village was attacked. Mongol scouts spent weeks analyzing settlements, mapping escape routes, assessing defenses, and cataloging the population. Women of childbearing age were noted. Skilled artisans, healer women, daughters of nobles, and mothers with young children were categorized separately. The Mongols' approach wasn't random violence, it was strategic resource acquisition. When the attack finally came, it unfolded with cold precision. Dawn assaults closed every escape route, spreading terror quickly. But once resistance collapsed, the real operation began. Women were separated immediately into groups, those useful for immediate tasks, skilled workers and artisans, and those selected for what the Mongols chillingly referred to as the integration program. This program was one of the most psychologically devastating aspects of Mongol conquest. Captured women were not merely enslaved, they were broken down mentally and emotionally, then rebuilt to serve specific functions within Mongol society. Forced marches that lasted for months tore them away from their children, their families, and everything familiar. Yet the psychological warfare was only beginning. The Mongols understood the value of a broken spirit. They used conditioning tactics that modern psychology recognizes as deliberate methods for controlling human behavior. Women were forced to witness executions of those who resisted, creating a climate of absolute terror. Those who complied received small rewards, fostering a dangerous form of dependency. When they finally reached the Mongol camps' mobile societies with rigid hierarchies, they found themselves placed at the bottom, forced to compete with one another for survival. The Mongols encouraged this rivalry, knowing that divided captives were easier to control. What happened next challenges every assumption about medieval warfare. The Mongols implemented a systematic breeding strategy. Women were assigned to Mongol warriors based on strategic considerations rather than personal choice. Leaders believed they could strengthen their empire through controlled reproduction. Women who bore children were treated slightly better. But their offspring faced their own tragic destinies, raised as Mongols, yet psychologically torn between two worlds. Evidence of these practices comes from Persian chroniclers, Chinese administrative records, and even Mongol documents themselves. Archaeological excavations across former Mongol territories reveal mass graves with signs of repeated trauma, malnutrition, and psychological torture. These patterns appear across thousands of miles and dozens of conquered cultures. Persian historian Juvayni described camps where captured women were subjected to the breaking of the mind. They were forced to abandon their religious beliefs, perform rituals honoring their captors, and denounce their own cultures and families. Shame was weaponized. In societies where a woman's identity was tied to purity and family honor, the Mongols targeted those concepts directly, creating emotional wounds that lasted generations. Over time, some captives began to identify more with their Mongol captors than with their own origins. Transformation brought about by starvation, isolation, and manipulation. This was more than personal trauma. It was cultural erasure. Women were forbidden from teaching their native languages to their children, forbidden from practicing their customs, and required to adopt Mongol traditions. Children were raised not just as Mongols, but as instruments of the empire. Yuan dynasty records reveal how bureaucratic this system was. Conquered regions were required to provide specific quotas of women, skilled artisans, potential wives, and even what the documents coldly labeled as breeding stock. Human beings were listed like livestock, with inventories and schedules that treated their suffering as routine administrative tasks. The scale of this system was unlike anything seen before. Millions of women across Asia and Eastern Europe experienced this machinery of psychological and cultural destruction. Their stories were buried beneath sanitized historical narratives that focused on battles instead of human suffering. The Mongols didn't just conquer lands, they conquered identities, cultures, and souls. Understanding this truth forces us to confront how power operates when left without moral restraint. History is not only dates and battles, it is the pain of real people whose voices were muted, while conquerors wrote the official record.